I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about health testing in Cairn Terriers. So there's a lot that goes into dog breeding that the average puppy buyer is never going to think about, because it's my job to be educated about that, right? Like, that's why you're paying me for the puppy, is because I am taking the time to have the education and do the research and do the proper work to make sure that we are producing a dog that is the least likely to have behavioral issues, to have conformational issues, and to have genetic diseases or problems, right? So let's talk a little bit about my background first and how I kind of got started in this. So I am a certified veterinary technician. I was board certified. On top of that, I have raised horses. I worked for a veterinarian for 5 years, and it was a large animal veterinarian, but there were a lot of conversations about breeding, and especially I learned a lot from herd management. So basically, what are the best practices for certain crosses? What's going to produce the healthiest offspring? And then something that a lot of dog breeders don't think about that I bring from the large animal side is ease of birthing. Is the mother a good mother? Is it a natural process, or are humans interfering? Because that is a huge problem in dog breeding right now, is people relying on things like artificial insemination or C-sections, which are both things that we have done, but very rarely. This is not something that I want to be becoming more of a problem in the dogs, right? Because if they can't naturally reproduce, and if they don't want to be mothers, and if they're not good mothers, then that's not good for the future of their breed. We don't force moms to have puppies that don't want to. We don't force matings that don't want to happen. We're very kind of hippie-ish around here. And that's the great thing about having a large breeding program, is we can make those decisions without feeling bad. If there's a female that doesn't want to be a mom, not a big deal. There's other girls out there. And so that's something to consider when you're choosing your breeders. If you're picking a breeder, not that there aren't great boutique breeders. Boutique breeders are awesome. But if you have one male and 3 females, that's what you got. Whether their COIs make sense, whether their genetic testing makes sense. So then you're counting on the integrity of that person that just paid $3,500, $4,500 for this breeding dog to be like, this dog shouldn't be bred, okay? So DNA testing used to be really a process. We would have to go to several different specialists. We'd have to line up for when they were going to be in our area of the country. And now it's so much easier. Most of it we can do with just a basic Embark DNA panel from home. And that's going to tell us some really important things we want to know about the mating or the crossing of these dogs. Okay, so this is a decision of how your puppy is going to be made. So like I said, I'm already taking into consideration the conformation of your dog. Does it have good legs? Does it have a good back? Does it have a nice sound conformation for movement, right? And that's coming from my horse background, because our horses, we expect to be athletes. So I'm looking for certain things. I'm looking for the depth of the dog's chest. Does it have good lungs? Does it have good knees? Does it have good feet? All the behavior. We're looking at behavior. So is this a man-made problem, or is this something that this dog is just prone to have? And that's a hard question to answer, especially if you didn't get the puppy at a really young age, because I feel like sometimes when I buy puppies at that 4-6 month stage, they kind of come with whatever the breeder before me kind of put into that dog management wise. And so a lot of the dogs that I've raised from puppies, I know what they are. And then once we're a couple generations down the line and I've raised their puppies and their puppies, I know exactly what they are. So if you want a dog that I can pretty much peg what that dog's personality is going to be like, you need to be picking a 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation puppy from us. 1st generation puppies might be just as wonderful or more wonderful than those 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation puppies. The thing is, I can't predict as easily the personality. I'm going based off of the parents of that dog, okay? So what is that Embark test and that DNA test going to tell us, and why is it important? So as an average puppy buyer, if you're picking a breeder that you trust, you don't need to see those results. You don't need to ask these specific questions. You need to pick someone that is going to do the homework for you, right? Like, I have a farrier for my horse's feet, and I don't try to tell him how to do his job. I just pick a farrier that I know does a good job, and I trust his judgment. So don't stress yourself out about this. You don't have to understand how to read all this. I'm just making this video so that you can understand kind of my thought process on how I'm deciding what dogs to breed. So let's talk about COI. And that is going to tell us how closely the dogs are related. So most Cairn Terriers are about 25% related. And that's pretty average. That's normal. We're not worrying at that rate, okay? Now, up to 35% related, we're not even really worried about. We're just thinking carefully about who we're going to cross that dog with, because 35% is about like siblings, okay? So, or it could be like siblings. I mean, I think I'm less than 35% with my own sister, okay? What the number we're really shooting for though, I love it when we get like 11 to 15% COI related in a purebred dog. That is amazing. It's very hard to get, but here's the thing. Those dogs that are less related are less predictable behaviorally, okay? So I'm not going to be able to tell you as much probably about what that dog's going to grow to be. It could be a throwback to a great grandparent somewhere in its lineage, and we just won't really know as well. But that dog is going to be a healthy mix of a lot of different genetic variants. So let's talk about the scary recessive diseases that can be in the genes, okay? The reason why we really need to test, right? Because all those other things are great. When we're thinking about COI, who's the best to cross with who, because they're not closely related. And we've already taken into consideration behavior and conformation. What is the next big important thing that we want to consider? And really it should be the first thing on a lot of breeders' radar, but it isn't always. And that is the diseases, right? So some of the main things we're looking for, Cairn Terriers will have strange blood cell things, there's GCL. CMO is basically a bone disease. Like, we don't have to go into exactly what the things are, but here's the important thing. If a mama dog or a daddy dog has one copy of this recessive thing, and you breed it to a dog that has 0 copies of this recessive thing, the puppies may or may not, they have a 50-50 chance of having a recessive copy of that gene, but they're not going to present with it, right? So you could have a dog that has GCL and is totally healthy and never has a problem in its life. But if you take this dog that has GCL and you breed it to another one that has GCL, okay, both these dogs are healthy. They both have one copy of the gene. Okay, you guys, let's show you how this works. So let's say this is a clear dog. Ooh, I need to focus this. This is a clear dog. Okay. This dog would be a not clear dog. 2 copies of the bad thing, no copies of the bad thing. This one, 1 bad copy, 1 good copy, okay, of the scary thing. So capital A, we'll say this is okay. All right. So let's say we breed. This is mom. And this is dad. Okay. Then you just bring it down. Down. Bring it sideways. So you got a 50% chance. These are your odds. You got a 50% chance that puppy is going to be a recessive carrier, not have any health issues, but it carries the gene, and if you breed it, you need to test its mate. You got a 25% chance that that puppy is going to have no issues, not a carrier. Okay, these guys are still no issues, but they're a carrier. Not even a carrier. This dog is going to present with a problem, and this is what we are scared of, and this is why genetic testing matters. Okay, so I hope that made sense. So why would you just not breed a dog that carries something bad at all, right? And I'm going to explain that. So I have what I call our clean lines, and those are my lines that I know they don't have anything, okay? They don't even carry anything bad. But why would I want to mix those dogs in with dogs that are a recessive carrier of a potential problem if bred incorrectly? Here's why. Because if we say this dog that has, maybe they have great behavioral traits, great conformational traits, they're not related to any of the other Cairns that are here, okay? But we're gonna ex-nay them because they're a recessive carrier of something. Not gonna do that, because we're missing out on that whole piece of the genetic puzzle, that whole piece of the gene pool. And what a loss and what a sad thing that would be, right? Because I've got dogs that are recessive carriers of things that I really love. They might be the best dog here, but they carry something that if bred with the wrong dog could result in an issue. So what a responsible breeder will do is that dog cannot be bred to another dog that is a recessive carrier of that gene. So what do? We DNA test all the dogs, okay? And we write down what they've got, or we look on the computer. They do a really good job of organizing it online for us. And we go, okay, so if we cross this one with this one, these are our odds of getting this or that. And we will not breed two dogs together that have the potential of having both of that bad recessive gene, because that is heartbreaking. Nobody wants to bring a puppy home, get attached to it, you love it, it's a living, breathing being. It does not deserve to die of some terrible disease before, natural causes of old age. So we are doing everything in our power to avoid that, and it's very important. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I think there's a really bad stigma behind dog breeding. People don't realize this is a profession. We have to be intelligent. We have to understand a lot about our dogs, the crosses we're making, how we're raising them, how we're keeping things clean. I am able to manage quite a few dogs just by keeping everything very clean every day without the use of a ton of chemicals or a lot of crazy dewormers through their system, because just like ourselves and our own bodies, we need to respect theirs. And we should not be having to constantly have our dogs on antibiotics. I don't believe in having a feed through flea medication every single month of a dog's life. Like that, just at a certain point, that can't be good for their system, right? Unless we have a dog that's visiting a lot of dog parks, a lot of pet stores all the time, right? And so I'm very focused on what can we do to prevent the issue in the first place. And that's going to be keeping things really clean, being really smart about our crosses. How are we raising them? What are they exposed to? How do we handle the socialization without being at risk of dragging in something that a puppy's immune system is not going to be able to handle? All right, I also am going to put a little blurb in here about how do you select breeding dogs? And let me tell you, it's basically a roll of the dice, and this is why I have huge respect for anybody that has a large breeding program. And that is because we are either paying a lot of money for health tested dogs, which may or may not be totally clear from other breeders, okay? I can't tell you how many times I've bought very expensive dogs that they're like, yeah, and they have a recessive copy of this. And it is so hard to find breeding dogs also because it's very political. You've got your show breeders over here, and they're breeding for the kind of flashy kind of Cairn. And I find that the show personalities are usually a little too intense for me. And then the pet breeders are dealing with things like banana tails, okay, the tail that curves back over the back, and they've got the long back Cairns, that look like little weasels. And if you look in the history of the Cairn Terrier breed, all those body types have always been a thing in the Cairn Terrier breed. We wouldn't want them all to look exactly alike because that would be bad, right? They'd all be very closely related. But we are looking for a good stout conformation. So I'm looking for a short back compared to a longer underline, just like in horses, because conformationally, muscle-wise, that's what makes most sense for the dog. I'm not saying that those other dogs don't live long, healthy lives. And when we're buying those dogs from those other breeders, then we're making decisions, crosses, to hopefully generations down the line have a dog that is all the things we're looking for, right? But we're going to be keeping back dogs from those recessive carriers. We're going to be testing them. We're going to be making decisions based on those tests. And I don't know that it will always be perfect. It's not going to. I can't tell you how many times I've bought very expensive health tested dogs that may or may not be clear. And then I've rolled the dice and I've bought dogs from people all over the place. I've bought dogs from breeders that people go, well, they're a puppy mill. And I don't know. I don't know if they're a puppy mill, right? I bought them from 4 states away. And from what I could see of what was presented to me, they're doing a fine job. They have less expensive puppies. They weren't health testing. So, if I just threw out a bunch of money to get a dog home and health test it and then have to spay or neuter it, and never be able to breed it, then that's on me. And that's also on you. If you decide to buy a dog from a breeder and roll the dice on what the genetic testing may or may not have been, that's just a risk you're taking. I had a firsthand experience with a bad genetic testing result. So I had a Scottish Terrier, and I loved him dearly. And he came from wonderful people. They had a male and a female Scottish Terrier. They were not breeders. They were just nice people. And both of the parents were perfectly healthy. But guess what? They both carried recessive copies of bad things. And my dog had horrible health issues and had to be euthanized at only a year old. Can you believe that? 1 year old, just enough time where you're very attached to them. You've done all the training, all the important training. I took him everywhere with me. And then to lose him at that age. So this is why this is very near and dear to my heart. It needs to be taken seriously. I think good breeders, responsible breeders do take it seriously, because for the longevity of your program, it is important. But this is why I am very skeptical of people that say, I don't do any health testing. Both the parents are healthy, so the puppy shouldn't have any issues, okay? You don't know that for sure. They might have some kind of recessive thing that you didn't know about. And responsible breeders even will sell you dogs with one recessive copy of an issue, because if you're also being responsible, if they're trusting you also to be responsible, then you should not be breeding that dog to other dogs that is going to create puppies with problems. You guys know I'm always happy to answer questions. Put your questions in the comments. I have a website, northwestcairnterriers.com. I write blog posts. Anytime I get a really good question, I will dig into it for you, and I will make content that hopefully answers it, because I coordinate several breeders in the Pacific Northwest. So Northwest Cairn Terriers basically started as just me as a breeder, but I never really wanted to have a dog kennel. And so basically there's several stay-at-home moms. We have a police officer, we have a retired lady that raises puppies, and they have their dogs, and I basically manage where are these puppies going. I'm doing all of the online stuff, all of the answering of the questions, and I'm raising a handful of litters myself every year. And this allows us just to kind of pick and choose our population. I got this female over here that might have this thing or that thing, or is totally clear or whatever, and she's the best match for this male over here. And we can make those decisions. We're not boxed in of this is our only male and this is our only female. And that makes such a huge difference. And I think that it is going to make a difference in the long-term improvement of the breed as far as what's being put out in the world, because we can select for the desirable traits that we're looking for. And really, the Cairn Terrier breed as a whole, I don't think needs improved upon a whole lot. When we get too stuck on something like making the nose shorter, making the tail shorter, stuff like that, those are the wrong things to be focused on. It's great, it's cute, yeah, you might if you're really getting down to where the DNA testing's great, the COI is great, everything is making sense, but this might be a better cross. That'd be a last consideration, right? What you don't want is people focusing on that as the main consideration of, I want a shorter tail because that's going to do better in the show ring. Or I want this coat because it's easier to groom. I'm selecting for that. I want that hard coat that's easier to groom, but it is not my first consideration. It's not even my third consideration. I'm looking at conformation, behavior,